A couple of years back, I interviewed my next guest about something completely different, and I said, what do you got in the pipeline? He said, I'm writing a book about Andrew and Fergie. I said, what are you going to call it? He said, I think I'll call it Entitled. That book, entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York by Andrew Lowney, has set in motion a train of events that are quite extraordinary. So a warm welcome to the show to the brilliant author Andrew Lowney. Hi, Andrew. So we've got you on the phone. First of all, you were quoted saying last week that in terms of these latest shocking revelations about Andrew and indeed Fergie, you know, pictures of him crawling around all over some woman on the floor, stories of Epstein sorting out a Russian prostitute for him, Fergie offering to marry Epstein, calling him the brother that I never had, and so on and so all of this after Epstein was convicted of paedophile child sex offences. So that seems pretty bad. But you were quoted last week, Andrew, saying that you believe there is more and worse to come. What do you mean by that?
Well, we've only had half of the documents, another 3 million documents that could be released. I've certainly seen, for example, national security issues, Andrew's links with Russian intelligence agency networks dealing with money laundering and with sex trafficking. There are talks of 15-year-old girls being brought to Andrew. And I think there are many more financial irregularities to do with, for example, bribes, $5 million of bribes in Kazakhstan. So I think it's going to get worse. I think what this disclosure has shown is that there's quite obviously women were trafficked for him, that there is a case for the Met to investigate him. And I think a lot of people are now calling for that. And I think there's a great suspicion that there's been a huge cover-up, and Buckingham Palace has known a lot more than they're saying. And I think the big question is to find out what they knew, when they knew it, what they did, and what they are now going to do. Because I think people do feel he needs to be held to account and needs to face justice. And
his ex-wife, Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, isn't much better. I mean, between them, this awful couple, I mean, do they have even, you know, a scintilla of moral fibre? I mean, they both seem to be the most amoral people I've ever come across.
I'm afraid that's true. I mean, I had talked to a member of staff last week for Andrew, and he doesn't seem to feel he's done anything wrong. He feels he's a victim. He's been penalised. So it is extraordinary. He's shown no remorse for the victims. He's refused to apologise. He's refused to cooperate with victims' lawyers or with any of the law enforcement people. There's no chance he's going to talk to the Senate. I think the only people he's going to talk to is if PC Plod knocks on his front door.
Yeah, and PC Plod have already passed over the chance to interview him. This was the allegation that he tried to persuade royal protection detectives to investigate Virginia Giuffre, his accuser, which was not his job to do. It was outside the remit, and that would have been, if he did that, that is a criminal offence. Trying to sort of bribe a serving police officer. They just glossed over that and said, no, we won't be bothering with this. Well, I think you're right, Andrew. I think we, the British public, are sick and tired of the authorities just sort of brushing aside or brushing under the carpet more and more serious charges about this man, Andrew, and indeed his wife. It is time the police got serious about this.
I agree. I mean, I think HMRC should be looking at both of them. I've offered to give my material, much of it which couldn't be used for legal reasons, to the National Crime Agency. But there's a whole catalogue of things. I do think we also need a parliamentary inquiry into his time as a trade envoy with the former heads of UKTI and ambassadors on oath saying exactly what happened, who he was taking with him. We think it included people like Epstein. And I think we need to see all those files for his time as a trade envoy. What are they covering up? And they would reveal who was traveling with him and what he was doing, because he wasn't necessarily promoting British business. He was promoting his own pals, particularly a man called David Rowland, to whom he fast-tracked a banking license in the Middle East.
And while he was a British trade envoy, this was a job that was sort of found for him at the imploring of his mother. after he ceased being a Navy commander, had nothing to do. So she sort of implored on the government then, oh, can we get him some sort of job? So they made him this international trade envoy, travelling around the world. Now, looking back on this now, he got the nickname during those days as Air Miles Andy, because he was always flying around the world first class at our expense. And when he went to various destinations to do trade envoy work, he invariably said, oh, I don't want to stay at the local embassy, because that would be a lot cheaper for us. He wants to stay at the local 5-star hotel because it's got a golf course attached to it, so he can play golf. But more to the point, it is now becoming clear that during this period, Prince Andrew, as he was then, spent inordinate amounts of time with Xi Jinping in China, and with the powers that be at the Kremlin, and, as you say, Kazakhstan. The implication, the allegation is that this guy, Prince Andrew's Air Miles Andy, was flying around the world first class at our expense, making deals, underhand deals, to betray the country and line his own pocket.
Yes, I mean, I think this is a national security question now. I mean, there's clearly a lot of compromise on him. He was caught in various honey traps with various women. It's clear that Epstein was a Soviet source. I know that Epstein and Ghislaine were brought together by a Russian agent. And I know MI6 were concerned about him. They were watching some of his associates and him. And they reported this to the palace, and they were told to get lost. So, as I say, I think there are some big questions for Buckingham Palace to answer, as well as the government. Why aren't the government releasing these files on his time as a trade envoy? Because I think that would answer some of the questions. But there's clearly a lot more still to come out. This guy has not fallen as low as he can fall.
And with the benefit of a retrospect and hindsight, Andrew, I think it's now clear that when King Charles was dragged slowly, kicking and screaming, towards the point where he took everything away from his brother, you know, his princely title, and everything else, his home and everything else, that the reason he got to that point was purely this, that clearly the royal family, the king, and indeed I guess the British government, knew what was going to come out in the Epstein files. They knew some time ago, so they moved to sort of nip it in the bud before the revelations actually came out, and now they are beginning to come out in all their horror.
Well, I think they also did it because wider questions were being asked about royal accountability and privilege, and they didn't want to go there. I mean, we've got the Public Accounts Committee looking at crown leases. People are beginning to talk about the opaqueness of royal finances, and I think that's where they don't want to go. It's better if they can keep the focus on Andrew. But you're absolutely right. They knew about this months ago, and they didn't seem to have prepared any preventative strategy.
Yeah. So when everybody goes, oh, isn't the King Charles marvellous? You know, he acted swiftly and abruptly to deal with this terrible problem with his brother. That's not actually true, is it? He actually railed against doing that for as long as possible until it was stressed to the king, look, sooner or later there are going to be revelations spilling out of the Epstein files that are going to make life extremely difficult for the royal family unless you do something now. That's why the king acted. It was self-preservation for the royal brand, wasn't it?
Yes, it is self-preservation, and I think this is possibly could be a lost opportunity. It's an opportunity to make the monarchy fit for purpose for the 21st century, to modernise, to show that they are accountable. I think one of the sad things here is that the vulnerability in British society was shown to be the royal family. That's why the Russians and the Chinese targeted Sarah and Andrew, because they realised that that was the way into the establishment, and because there was absolutely no scrutiny. If the royals have nothing to hide, they should have no worries about being much more open about the way they operate.
And of course, Fergie and Andy were handy targets for our enemies, for this nation's enemies, Russia, China, etc., because they are so incredibly stupid, because neither of them have any judgment. I mean, the idea that this ridiculous, moronic oaf, Prince Andrew, would say to a convicted paedophile, oh, while you're in London, why don't you come for dinner to Buckingham Palace? You know, the Queen will be there, maybe you can bump into her. Fergie, the same, oh, you're like a brother to me, oh yes, come and meet my daughters, after he was convicted of child sex abuse. Their lack of judgment, well, I say lack of judgment, they just haven't got any. They are an incredibly stupid couple who have brought the royal family into disgrace and compromised this entire nation by the look of it.
No, I agree. And I think the thing is, they didn't operate on their own. I mean, there were a whole series of people who enabled them and protected them, I mean, right up to the present day. And that's where this is becoming a big cover-up. It's not just the original scandal. It's how people have tried to suppress it coming out.
Let's go straight over now to the political editor of The Sun, Jack Elson. Maybe suffering from jet lag. He was in Beijing last week. How was your trip, Jack?
It was very full on, Kevin. Beijing, Shanghai, Tokyo, and then back to London. We actually flew around the entire circumference of the globe. So, yes, I'm a bit jet lagged, but here from Westminster to talk to you and write for Sun readers tomorrow.
There, brilliant, excellent. Good to have you on board, as always, Jack. First of all, I want to ask you about Starmer in just a minute. But the big story today, in my view, and in fact, the big Epstein story of the weekend was not so much Prince Andrew. I mean, how much more shame and disgrace can that guy take? Another day, another revelation, more sordid behaviour on his part. He's already been sorely punished. Maybe he'll get his collar felt, who knows? But I tell you who it seems to me must have his collar felt, must be talked to by the police, is Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, after these shocking revelations over the weekend that in 2009, when he was business secretary, his partner, his lover, was accepting thousands of pounds worth of payments from Jeffrey Epstein, an American businessman. Did that compromise our business secretary? And back in 2004, when Mandelson was just segueing from being an MP to being our European trade envoy, he himself, according to the Epstein files, took $75,000 from Jeffrey Epstein. Personally, he's now saying, oh, I don't recall that. Looks as if it might be a bit false. This needs to be, he actually said, this needs to be investigated by me. No, Peter, this needs to be investigated by the police. There is a serious suggestion that this guy was taking money and the policies that he was instigating were being influenced by the cash he was receiving by a very rich American tycoon. This is serious, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, and what you just read out, Kevin, is really the tip of the iceberg because, you know, with each hour that passed, we have more evidence coming out of these Epstein files, which drags Peter Mandelson ever further into it. We've seen that in the dying days of the Labour government, where Peter Mandelson was business secretary, he appears to have tipped off Jeffrey Epstein about a massive 500 billion euro bailout. We have revelations that he gave Jeffrey Epstein highly sensitive information about a sell-off of government assets, more revelations about the fact that he seems to be giving Jeffrey Epstein a lot of information inside government from when he sat at that top table around the cabinet, and all at the same time receiving money from Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we haven't had a response from Peter Mandelson about these latest claims. What we have had in the Commons, and it's being debated right now in the House of Commons chamber, is a groundswell of calls from across the political divide for Scotland Yard to get involved, because there are accusations now. And like I said, we haven't had Peter Mandelson's reaction, but there are accusations now of criminality in public office. And so that is what I think the government is going to come under pressure to next, because this does impact Starmer, who obviously appointed him as US ambassador, despite knowing, one, his past links with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, but two, his previous scandals involving very rich, powerful people. Let's not forget that twice under the Tony Blair government, Peter Mandelson was forced to resign in some sort of row involving very rich individuals. And so the question now will be whether Starmer or not backs a full police investigation. That is the calls coming tonight from Westminster. Keir Starmer so far saying that he will launch a government review into Peter Mandelson's contact with Jeffrey Epstein while he was in government, saying that he wants him to relinquish his peerages and his titles. But there is a bit of anger tonight that the Prime Minister has stopped short of actually using an Act of Parliament to strip Lord Mandelson of his title as a peer of the realm, something which he could do. Downing Street suggesting that that's too complicated and too timely, and actually they want to change the system. But yeah, bad for Peter Mandelson and increasingly bad for Keir Starmer as well.
Yeah, I mean, questions have to be asked of successive Labour Prime Ministers, Blair, Brown and now Starmer, as to why they let this guy hold very high offices of state. Because if these allegations are true coming out of the Epstein files, this guy Mandelson was never fit to hold a high office of state in this country and should never have been appointed to these jobs. If he was receiving money, as it looks as if he was throughout his tenure as business secretary and before that European trade envoy, senior advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, if he was receiving money all the time from Epstein or his partner was, this is serious. This is very serious. And I think the police do need to be brought in. You know, Keir Starmer now saying, he's sort of getting very serious about, Mandelson should leave the Lords and an investigation is required. Well, this is a big mistake Starmer has made. And I'm getting a bit sick of all this stuff. Do you remember when people calling for Prince Andrew to have his prince title taken? Oh, it's too complicated. We can't. Oh, Duke of York, it's too complicated. It's too complicated. We can't do that. And then all of a sudden, King Charles does it like that, at a stroke. Now we're hearing it's too complicated to get rid of Peter Mandelson's peerage. Well, I don't really care. I think we should do it, don't you?
This is it. I mean, it's not as if there's going to be any resistance to this whatsoever. You know, politicians of all parties in both the Commons and the Lords are united in their condemnation of Peter Mandelson. And I'm sure that if they decided to sit all night, pass primary legislation, which we know they can do, they did it when they wanted to take British Steel into public ownership. There's clearly a precedent to do this. It doesn't seem there's the political will at this point, and they're hiding behind mechanics. Now, whether they are right in saying that actually they do want an easier way of doing this, the proof will be in the pudding, but they need to get on with it pretty quickly. I think what's interesting in this whole thing, two things. One is the successive blind spots which Labour leaders have had for Peter Mandelson. You know, he's been on in the front and centre of political life for 4 decades, starting from when he was Director of Communications to Neil Kinnock. He then had various scandals along the way with Tony Blair. Gordon Brown brought him back. He then managed to have his sort of third act as US ambassador. Starmer forced to fire him again. But even after he was fired as US ambassador, he sort of tried to make a bit of a more of a comeback once again into public life. He did an interview with Laura Kuenssberg. He's been writing various pieces. He's been sort of getting himself out there. This does seem to be, I think, the final curtain call for Peter Mandelson, and I'm not sure there is any coming back from this now. Yeah,
go away, Mr. Mandelson. You received the memo. Now do what you're told. Disappear forever. Yeah, but interesting going forward to find out exactly what the police do about this and exactly what Keir Starmer will do about it as well. Just very quickly, we're hearing that Angela Rayner's got a £1 million fighting fund to take on Keir Starmer. How did you find his mood last week in China? Does he know he's under threat? And what do you make of these increasing rumours that Ms. Rayner is about to strike?
Well, it's interesting. On the plane on the way out, when the Prime Minister spoke to us, he was very stiff, very rigid, and he looked quite nervous. Clearly, he was anticipating his meeting with the Chinese Premier, Xi Jinping. After that meeting, his sense of it was that it went very well, and he clearly came out with with concessions on lifting the sanctions of 4 Tory MPs and 2 peers, which he then trumpeted as a big diplomatic victory. And so after that, he tended to relax a bit more, saw us on the plane afterwards a few other times during the trip, and he seemed a bit more jovial. He's clearly comfortable when he's abroad because he knows that he has massive problems at home. You know, I know it's the biggest Westminster cliche that we write in our
Get away
intros
from it all in sunny China.
Exactly that. You know, he's having fun, striding the world stage, but he's jetting back into a sea of troubles back home. You know, if I had £1 for every time a journalist wrote that metaphor, I'd be a rich man. But it is true in the case of Keir Starmer, because there are constant questions about his leadership. People constantly talking about the May local elections as a flashpoint where someone might move against him if, as expected, the results are dire for the Labour Party. I think what's keeping him in place at the moment is no one really knows the mechanism of which of how they will oust him, because there's not really a clear rival. You know, Wes Streeting is clearly quite popular with the public, but pretty loathed by the grassroots Labour members. Rayner has still got all of this sort of tax drama surrounding her, and also is pretty loathed by the country, even if she's the darling of the left Labour membership. And Andy Burnham clearly has had his route cut off from Parliament.
I know what we need to do. We need Donald Trump to kidnap him like he did in Venezuela. One of those situations. And by the way, I keep hearing that Peter Mandelson, an incredibly clever man, very clever man. Let me tell you something about clever men, Jack. They don't get caught. This guy can't even go outside his friend's house for a pee without getting caught. He gets caught every single time. If he's clever, God knows what I am. Let's now talk about the Emmys. It was the Emmy Awards where all those people who sing pop ditties come together to give each other great big glittering trophies and tell each other how wonderful they are. Last night we had people like Billie Eilish and Trevor Noah all polishing their anti-Trump halos, banging on about, get off ICE, get them out, freedom, the American dream, all this kind of stuff. When will they ever learn nobody cares about their political opinions? Let's remind us a few years back what Ricky Gervais brilliantly told the gathered, collected celebrities at the Golden Globes Awards.
Apple roared into the TV game with a morning show, a superb drama about the importance of dignity and doing the right thing, made by a company that runs sweatshops in China. So, well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So, if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and
he spoke for all of us there, didn't he? But they never get the message, do they? Let's talk to the assistant showbiz editor at The Sun, Amanda Devlin. Hi, Amanda.
Hey, Kev.
Let's have a little... we've got a montage here of all the celebrity hatred, the left-wing nonsense from people like Billie Eilish and Trevor Noah, all talking about ICE and, Donald Trump's dreadful and all that. Why don't these people ever realise that nobody cares what they think? I'm not against them standing up and spewing their naive sixth-form activist claptrap if they want to. It's a free country. America's a free country. What I object to is their expectation that we give a damn what they think. They're dancers, they're singers, they're little actors. They pretend to be other people. Doesn't give them a right to expect their political opinions to be taken seriously, does it?
Totally. I mean, I knew that you'd be raging about this. As usual, every single award ceremony that we see, it's the same old trope, isn't it, that's just put out on a stage and we all have to be forced to listen to it. I think Donald Trump said it best when it said it was virtually, impossible to actually watch. It was unwatchable because it should be at the time when you've got a room full of the biggest stars in the world, who are the most talented musicians and singers. And yeah, it all comes down to politics, and you just get lectured as you're watching.
Yeah, these are some of the speeches that went down last night. This was at the Emmys over there in Los Angeles last night. Check
No one is illegal on stolen land. And I feel like we just need to keep fighting and speaking up and protesting, and our voices really do matter, and the people matter, and I say sorry.
Congratulations, Billie Eilish. Wow. That is a Grammy that every artist wants, almost as much as Trump wants Greenland, which makes sense. I mean, because Epstein's island is gone, he needs a new one to hang out with Bill Clinton. So, oh, I told you it's my last year. What are you going to do about it?
I'm going to say, eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans, and we are Americans.
That's Bad Bunny, one of my favourite artists of all time. Who the hell is he? But what a load of nonsense. And by the way, Trevor Noah might be in trouble there for his anti-Trump rant there, because he talks about Trump basically going to Pedo Island, Jeffrey Epstein's island, that he never went. There is there's no evidence he ever went to Pedo Island. In fact, he fell out with Epstein, and Donald Trump is threatening to sue Trevor Noah. And frankly, if he does, he would deserve it, wouldn't he?
Well, yeah, Trevor Noah, the host there, saying it's his last year, so he can say what he wants and what are you going to do about it? Well, what we're going to do about it from Trump is, Team Trump is saying, we're going to sue you. And we know that Trump likes to sue. We've got the BBC still waiting on their $1 billion, however much, with the lawsuit that's coming up. So, yeah, I mean, even though it was a really great night for British artists like Olivia Dean, who won the Best New Artist, and Lola Young for her pop performance of Messy. And there were really great performances on stage, actually, from Lady Gaga and Sabrina Carpenter. But actually that moment kind of took off because Trump went on Truth Social and he had a go at Trevor Noah and said how unhappy he was, and he said he was going to sue about it because it just simply isn't true that he was on Epstein Island. Exactly right. And all these people, don't forget, in the run-up to the last presidential election, the whole of Hollywood's going, don't vote for Kamala Harris, don't vote for Trump, Trump's horrible, don't vote. America completely ignored them. America doesn't care what Hollywood stars think about politics. As I say, they're perfectly entitled to have their viewpoints, and if they want to make fools of themselves shouting away at the pulpit after they've won an award, I suppose that's up to them. But what I object to is they expect us to take them seriously. As Ricky Gervais quite rightly said, why should we? Most of them went to school less than Greta Thunberg. Great to talk to you, Amanda, as always. Thank you so much. Amanda Devlin there, Assistant Showbiz Editor at The Sun. They get on your nerves, don't they, these showbiz? We're all so left-wing, we can afford it. We can afford to be socialists because we've got the money. We haven't, and we can't afford it. You've been very, very moved by the story of Rhiannon Whyte. We all have. We're particularly moved by her brave mother, Donna, and that extraordinary statement she made in court, humiliating that monster who murdered her daughter because he danced over her body, and Donna said, "You're not dancing now, are you? Let's see you dance now." You pointed out on Twitter that the local MP for Donna and Rhiannon, a guy called Matt Weston, Labour MP for Warwick and Leamington, had not even contacted Donna Whyte's mother. In fairness, I don't know if it's subsequent to your tweet or before, he has apparently been in touch, but he won't tell us what the conversation entailed. But what I think your tweet does highlight is the strange, I would suggest sinister silence of this government on this particular murder. We haven't heard anything from the Prime Minister, from the Labour government, from the safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips. Yeah. There's always this government don't seem to care about the victims of sexual crime, particularly if it's by an asylum seeker or a migrant, as in this case. So your point that you made about the MP, the local MP, although it seems he did in the end get in touch with Donna Whyte, the government aren't saying a word, and they owe us a statement, don't they?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna just contradict you slightly, Kevin, and I apologise, but Siobhan is Rhiannon's mum. But that's okay. There's a lot of, she's got sisters and cousins, so a lot of the ladies' names get mixed up. So not...
Isn't it Donna Siobhan or something? I thought it was.
No, yeah, Siobhan, yeah, Siobhan. So it doesn't matter. You know, I'm sure she'll forgive you. Frankly, this government, if this government had done its job, Rhiannon would still be alive. Okay, and that's a fact. So it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you sit on, what your views are. The fact is that this man was let in to this country 11 weeks before he murdered Rhiannon. He'd already been expelled from Germany. He'd been expelled from Italy. He came through France and came to the UK. Now, this government and subsequent governments before this government, for the last 25 years, have allowed men to come into this country to rape and sexually assault and murder young women, children, and in some cases young boys. And the silence, the shocking silence from this government is absolutely disgraceful. So this MP that says he's been in contact, I can categorically assure you that he has not been in contact with Rhiannon's mother, and neither has the MP that looks after the constituency in which the hotel and the station is where Rhiannon was murdered, and neither has Jess Phillips.
Phillips has. Now, I've got to say that this MP, he does say he has been in touch. Matt Weston. It may be subsequent to your powerful tweet and your powerful statement. I just have to say that's what his office is saying. Now, Jess Phillips, I don't think so. The government, I don't think so. Where is a statement from this government about this murder that shocked the nation? Why are they always so silent?
They're silent, but they're so vocal about Palestine. They're so vocal about China. They're so vocal about reform. They're so vocal about all these things that really, in the great scheme of things, do not matter compared to that of the safety of the citizens of this country. The first and most important job of any government is the security and the protection of its citizens and its borders. Fail. They have failed on every solitary one of the most important things that a government is in place to do. And the fact is, not even a tweet, not even, a mention at Prime Minister's questions, not even an email of condolence to her family. And yesterday, I was so upset that I actually cried on national TV.
I know you did.
Frustration. Today, I'm just livid, because now they're backpedaling, and apparently one of them said, "Oh, we're gonna reach out." You're 15 months too late, mate. 15 months too late. That family have been through a trial. They've been through multiple delays because that animal kept saying that he was underage and refused to have bone density checks because of his human rights. At what point does this government stand up and say, we're going to stop the unnecessary and avoidable murders of these young women? Because, Kevin, this woman, this is all over the papers now and all over the media, but there are more coming this year. There are more coming, and each and every member of the public in this country are going to be dumbfounded by what is going to come out, which has been kept silent and swept under the carpet.
Orla, do you think that in this country, I think we have a problem. I mean, of course, in my view, there's a very grave suspicion, fear, that we have been importing a sex crime epidemic.
Yes,
all these young and thousands of young men coming from foreign cultures where their attitudes to women are very different. We don't know anything about them, and more of them are being convicted or charged with sex crimes. So that is a massive problem. But I think in this country, we have a strange attitude to sex crimes. We have a strange attitude to paedophile sex crimes.
Yes.
I've got two stories right on my desk right now. I won't go into the details, but both are very, very serious paedophile offences. The two perpetrators in court, neither of them have been sent to jail. We have a policy that paedophiles on the first offence do not go to jail.
Outrageous.
I give you Hugh Edwards, for example. So child sex abuse on the first offence is seen in this country officially as not a jail sentence, not a prison sentence. And they'll go they'll go on about they'll go, oh well, the cells are full, the prisons are full. It's child sex abuse. You can't let these people back out onto the street, and yet we have an official policy of doing that. What are your thoughts on that, Orla?
There is nothing more evil and sadistic than that of sexual assault to a young child, or any sexual assault, but especially to a young vulnerable child. These men, and sometimes women, but mainly men, in my opinion, should never see the light of day. And if there is no room in our prisons, deport the 50,000 illegal criminals, foreign criminals we have in our prisons. Get rid of them and make room for these animals. There was I know exactly what you're referring to, a man that has sexually assaulted a young girl and told her to be quiet, etc., etc. He's been allowed out of prison. You get someone like Lucy Connolly can do one tweet and get 18 months. That is how mixed up this country has become. Our priorities, our moral compass is completely skewed. I don't know. I've never known anything like it.
Samara has been at Reform UK's press conference where Nigel Farage, in quite a shrewd political mood, I must say, announced that Reform UK's one of their major policies will be to bring down the price of a pint. And my God, do we need that? As I said earlier, around here, where we work, around London, central London, £8.50, £9. Absolutely common for a pint of beer. It's all around the country, £7.50, £6.50. It's pretty astronomically expensive. Explain, if you will, Samara, how Nigel Farage intends to bring down these prices.
Well, it was a very interesting speech by him and Lee Anderson where they said that they do want to save Britain's pubs. Now, I think what stuck out to me about Farage's speech particularly was about how he wants to make sure that energy bills are lower, because that's a main issue for pubs, and that's what's actually driving up the price of pints. So he more went into the whole, we're going to scrap net zero, we're going to basically reduce VAT to 10% for the hospitality sector. And he said that when they get in office, the price of a pint should go down by about £1. Now, they had all the paraphernalia. They had these little cards
but they didn't have any beer for you.
Yeah, they gave me this QR code on how to save the pints, but yeah, no alcohol.
Where's the beer? Where's the beer?
Yeah.
Now, you managed to get a question into Mr. Farage because at the weekend, Jeremy Clarkson, probably Britain's best-known pub owner, wrote quite a powerful piece, quite a powerful attack job on Reform UK, saying what a lot of people say, well, you know, you sound all right, but you got one policy, solving the migrant crisis, nothing else. You asked Mr. Farage about that, and here's what happened, folks.
Samara Gill from TalkTV.
Jeremy Clarkson, a pub owner, he wrote a very scathing piece in The Sun this weekend saying that reform sounds great until you ask what they actually do beyond stopping the boats. He also said that voters don't know what they're signing up for. So can you name one policy on health, education or transport that would be measurably better after your first year in power, and tell us how voters would notice the difference?
Hello, Jeremy. Here we are. I'll put a copy in the post to you. I've not been to your pub yet. I trust I'm not banned, along with all the Labour MPs. There you are. There you are. And actually, what he's saying is wrong. Wrong. We've been unveiling new names, new faces. We've been unveiling policies for the last 6 or 8 months, actually in considerable quantity. So I can tell you, Jeremy, there's a constructive plan for pubs that also cuts the welfare bill. I'm sure he will approve thoroughly of that. And you can tell him we're working very, very hard on a proper agricultural policy as well. So I think perhaps he'd be reassured. Just spend less time with David Cameron would be my advice.
Interesting times. In terms of the beer policy, I mean, it does seem to me quite shrewd of Reform UK to say we'll bring down a price of a pint. The one kind of drawback in this policy is, of course, people love to go for a pint after a day's work. And by the time Reform UK potentially win an election in 2029, nobody will have a job.
Well, there'll be that, and there probably won't
So
be...
they'll just be able to drink to forget. Yeah.
There won't be many pubs left either. That's also the issue, because they are shutting down. They genuinely are at a vast and very, very quick rate. So, I mean, unfortunately, most of the questioning was around Mandelson when the journalist kind of got a leg in and wanted to ask him, and he had many words to say about that. But he is saying that he's going to do it by basically reintroducing the two-child benefit cap. So that's an interesting thing. He said that he only wants British families to be able to access that, and no foreign nationals to have any access to that, to those child
general
benefits.
savings will enable a reform government to be much kinder to pubs and therefore bring the price of a pint down.
Essentially, yes, and we were looking for a potential Labour defection at this presser.
Yeah, when is that going to happen?
Yeah, well, someone in the production team just joked to me, was it going to be Mandelson just jumping?
It's Mandelson! Ta-da! That'll make a few headlines.
Well, every time I go to one of those presses, it's just they unveil someone new from behind a sort of glittery curtain, and so it was a bit dour not to have someone jump ship and come on to reform, but I guess that they just wanted to focus on pubs today, but it was pretty much very Westminstery.
I'm very fond of the Reform team. We remain studiously impartial and unbiased, of course, as a presenter on this fine channel. But I like the Reform team. But I'm not sure what I think about their policy of having a press conference virtually every day, whether they need one or not.
They were loving it.
Well, welcome to the press conference. Not sure what we're going to announce today. Maybe someone will defect. We've got any defectors out there?
Yeah, it was pretty much that.
A queue down the street of Labour and Tory MPs ready to defect.
You're not wrong, Kev. I think the political theatre should not be overestimated because, as Jeremy Clarkson wrote in his great column for The Sun at the weekend, it is a lot of smoke and mirrors at the moment. There is a lot of sort of just dancing and political prowess, which is just basically motivated by Twitter at the moment. How many policies do we actually have from reform? So I think someone like Clarkson putting a bit of pressure on Farage is probably going to be a good thing. And this seems to be some sort of policy, hopefully the first of many from them. But they're going to need to back up what they're actually saying and how they're going to save the country with actual facts.
Let me put a sort of question out to the audience. I mean, I've got I asked what was the cheapest place you knew to get a pint. Anybody got the most expensive? Let me know the most expensive pint you ever bought. I could step outside of this office and go to the pub next door and probably beat yours, but seriously, it's very expensive around here. Let me know the most expensive pint you've ever had. But in terms of going to the pub quite regularly, like old people like me used to do, people used to go for a couple of pints every night, once they got home or after work. But of course they're doing that less and less for obvious reasons, because, 20 quid down after 2 pints, that's going to burn a hole in your wallet. What kind of price would you be looking for a pint in a pub that would entice you to regularly go to your local or the pub next to where you work? What kind of price would you be looking at? £5 or £6? I don't know. Let me know. 03444991000. Just before you go, Samara, you heard a lot from Reform UK about Peter Mandelson. He's resigned, or retired, he's called it, from the House of Lords today. So he has finally accepted that nobody wants to see his scrounging, snivelling, lying face ever again. But the heat is he seems to think he can just sort of step back and all's going to be well. Gordon Brown writing to Met Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley with information relevant to his investigation of Lord Mandelson's disclosure of market-sensitive and confidential government information. That's pretty bombshell. That's quite a serious development. Mandelson, he should start measuring up his prison pyjamas, if you ask me.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say something ridiculous. No, look, he jumped
That's
before...
what you're here for.
He jumped before he was pushed, I think, in this situation with the peerage and all that. But I think you're right. As you were saying, actually, early yesterday, before a lot of information came out, he was giving sensitive information when he was business secretary to Epstein. That came out overnight. So you were right. There is more and more and more. But I say shame on Labour, because they've been sitting on this for decades. Why are they just coming out with it now? Gordon Brown, where were you months ago?
It's exactly what the audience is saying. You're in touch with them yet again, Samara. So, Mr. Brown, Sir Gordon, are you? Is he Sir Gordon yet? Probably. They all get those socialists. They love their aristocratic titles, don't they? Well, Gordon Brown, you've written today done your public duty with information relevant to the investigation of Lord Mandelson. Why now? Why didn't you say anything before? If you've got incriminating evidence on this guy, it means you've had it for the best part of 14, 15, maybe 20 years.
Well,
why now? Why now? Were you withholding evidence, Mr. Brown?
Remember that photo gate that we had a couple months ago where he was seen publicly urinating Peter Mandelson?
Yeah, he can't even get away with that outside George Osborne's house.
Exactly. So I'm saying the rot is so deep within the Labour Party, and he's not the most rotten of the bunch, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But they're all covering it up. They're all covering it up for him, or they were.
And if I don't want to hear one more Westminster twonk say he was the most clever man in power, brilliant political... He's a clown. He's useless. Clever people don't get caught. He gets caught every time. And Samara just said he can't even take a pee in the street without being photographed. The man is a loser, a massive loser. And he's going to jail, I reckon. He's a former defence lawyer over in America for Epstein accusers. He is Joshua Schiffer. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you so much for having me on another crazy day as this story continues to unfold.
It is a crazy day, and over here you can imagine a massive story. We've got this major politician, a man who was at the centre of government for generations, Peter Mandelson, now at the centre of an official criminal investigation which has been launched into allegations that Mandelson passed market-sensitive information to paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. The former Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, has in the past hour revealed that he has passed information on to the police force in this investigation. So Mandelson is in a world of trouble. We think that if these allegations are true, that he was taking money from Epstein while he was a senior government minister and feeding Epstein sensitive secret government information, he's heading for jail. There's no doubt about it if those allegations are true. But in all this sort of fun and frivolity that we're having to Peter Mandelson's expense, because the thing about Peter Mandelson is, you know, hardly anyone in his whole life ever liked him. Everybody hates Mandelson. So we're enjoying his downfall because he deserves it. But in all this fun and frivolity, we forget, don't we, what we're really talking about. He was part of a circle of friends who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein cajoled and persuaded all these young girls into his evil network, and they were sexually abused all over the world. That is very, very serious. You represented one, Jennifer Eros. She was recruited outside her New York City high school to provide sexual massages to the wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein. So if you can, Joshua, try to sum up your feelings about the level of this crime. I think of Jennifer and it makes you cry, it makes you weep.
Jennifer was definitely the most well-known, but we actually handled multiple others because most people don't understand that the vast majority of Jeffrey Epstein's victims chose to remain absent from the public discussion. And that was for their own self-worth and their self-being, their own self-help or health. Because think about it. Look at how big this has gotten. And imagine the decisions that you were involved with and the incidents that you were involved with as a young person, literally chasing you for the rest of your life. And it's that anonymity which they purchased by participating in the Victims' Compensation Fund that's now been destroyed through this recent 3 million pages posted by the U.S. Department of Justice, a release which has also now parts have been taken down, more redactions have been made. Just like the first release, it appears that this was a pretty sloppy job, all things considered. and that certain people were thoroughly protected with very aggressive redactions, where other information kind of just fell by the wayside, and no one really checked to find out if you were illegally and wrongfully releasing the pertinent identifying information for victims who, without a doubt, have gone through something that will affect them for the rest of their lives, the kind of injuries that every parent is terrified about when it comes to their child.
Well, talking about parents, what do you make of this? Prince Andrew, or Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as he is now, he insists that he did not sexually abuse Virginia Giuffre on 3 different continents, but nevertheless gave her $12 million not to take the court case to civil court in New York. You wonder why he did that if he'd never met her. That's what he keeps saying. So believe that, and I've got some swampland to sell you in Florida. But seriously, this guy and his wife, Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, they kept up a close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, as did Peter Mandelson, after Epstein was convicted of child sex abuse paedophile offences. Now, Sarah Ferguson, we've only learned today, almost immediately after the end of his sentence, when he'd finished his sentence for paedophilia, she took her 2 daughters to go and see him, to have lunch with him. That's Princess Eugenie and Beatrice. And a lot of people said, oh, those poor girls, they were sucked into this, they're so young. Well, they weren't that young. They were 19. Wait. They were 19 and 20. What do you think of people like Mandelson, Prince Andrew, as he then was, and Sarah Ferguson maintaining and keeping up a close friendship with a convicted paedophile?
It illustrates exactly how out of context and out of touch they are with the general society at large. When people of such poisonous repute enter your life, the vast majority of people wise up and go, oh, that person is a societal and cultural danger to me and the people I hold precious. Let's make sure that we're not exposed to them. And what we've seen is exactly the opposite. As soon as this gentleman who received an outrageously, indefensibly generous resolution of very, very strong charges against him in the state of Florida, as soon as he's out, you're seeing the resumption of these relations, which so far many people have said, oh no, we cut and ran. We had nothing to do with him. Look at the Lutnick statement that's come out. And again, with the princesses, with Fergie, with former Prince Andrew, you're seeing continued interactions that don't appear at all respectful of the victims that Jeffrey Epstein created. And he created these victims over many, many years, involving many co-conspirators, co-collaborators. And so far, the only one that's gone to jail is Ghislaine Maxwell, who's getting ready to appear and probably provide some interesting testimony to the government over here in the United States. It's a shame no one additionally has been prosecuted. And we'll see what happens now that there's the new investigation in the UK, and I'm waiting for additional investigations here in the United States.
Yes, indeed. Now, of course, to some extent, Andrew and Mandelson could redeem themselves by testifying to Congress, the congressional investigation into Epstein's network. As you say, this was a network, this was a scandal of men, and the only person to go to jail for it is a woman. Again, in my view, a story of our times. That's all wrong. I don't suppose Mandelson and Prince Andrew, or Andrew as he now is, will testify to Congress, but it would be a decent thing for them to do, wouldn't it?
I'm a criminal defense lawyer by trade, so it's almost never in my client's best interest to put themselves up on that kind of platform and subject themselves to an aggressive and effective cross-examination. But considering the stakes and what's been lost, is there any pathway forward to redemption? And is redemption that worth it for them? If you're former Lord Mandelson, or soon-to-be former Lord Mandelson, or the former Prince, you've got to wonder, what gains would you get by really thoroughly coming out and admitting to what you actually knew and participated in? Could there be any recovery from that, even given the ostensibly really positive contributions they've made in other parts of their lives? I don't think the community is willing to forgive, especially after years of denials that have now been shown to be flatly lies.
Yeah, they lied. Now, you have dealt with all these poor victims of Epstein. Tell me what you think about people like Andrew and Mandelson, Sarah Ferguson, who resumed their friendships with this monster after his release from jail for his paedophile sex crimes. What do you think of those people?
Well, so there is definitely some credence to be given to the idea of guilt by association, and mere association or mere presence doesn't indicate guilt or doesn't indicate that you actually participated in these sordid and disgusting crimes. But when you see the repetitiousness, when you see the long-term interactions where it would be very difficult for anybody in my position or from my position for anybody to be friends with Jeffrey Epstein without knowing the reputation, without seeing the assorted detritus in his path that he's left of all of these young women. Remember, to anybody that's visited the BVI or the USVI, these are very small communities. Very little happens without everybody knowing, especially when big money's at play. And he was spending a lot of money down in the USVI.
So, central question to Peter Mandelson, Sarah Ferguson, Prince Andrew, if you like, maybe Bill Clinton, Bill Gates. It's this question, isn't it? What first attracted you to the billionaire Jeffrey Epstein? It's as simple as that. Always, Joshua, follow the money. Now, let me ask you this first. Keir Starmer, over the past few days, has been making a lot of play, apologising and expressing his sympathy for the victims of the girl victims of Jeffrey Epstein. So, it's the victims we have to worry about. They were sexually exploited. They're the victims of this awful man and what happened. Does that ring kind of sincere to you? Because it doesn't seem to me that Keir Starmer and his government are very committed to justice for people like you and the 250,000 or so estimated victims of the appalling rape gang scandal which continues to this day. What do you think about Keir Starmer and Labour's attitude to you and your fellow victims?
I think rightly so that he's apologised for the girls that have been victims of exploitation and rape from Epstein. But I also think that it's relevant that he apologises to his own girls and boys in his own country. You know my opinions on Keir Starmer. I don't necessarily like him. I think it's embarrassing how a 25-year-old victim of rape gangs has more minerals than what the man that's supposed to protect our country has. I feel like half of the time me and other survivors are out here doing his work. While he's apologising to girls in a different country, he really needs to have a look at his own.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Rupert Lowe, you probably know, his personal or private crowdfunding rape gang inquiry is underway. Rupert got that going out of sheer frustration because of the delays in the government's public inquiry, the official one that never seems to happen. I can't for the life of me find any kind of date when it's supposed to properly start. Now, you were a part of that inquiry along with several other rape gang victims. You were the sort of victims panel, and you, along with others, resigned out of frustration over the whole business of this inquiry and the parameters which it would evolve under. Tell me about that.
The panel for the government, the Home Office and NWG Network, I mean, it was there for silencing, it was there for enabling the corruption. Basically, what they were trying to do was silence everybody by finding out information that everybody had. I think Rupert's inquiry is great. However, I still am very 50-50 on the inquiries, because I think an inquiry is more statistical. It's there to report findings, basically prove everything that we were saying has been right all along. I think with an inquiry, we need justice, and justice is accountability. And with an inquiry, it's not, that easy to get it. So I'm still very 50-50 on that. I mean, it's great that the findings are coming out. It's great that people are giving evidence, but we need people's jobs lost. We need to be blunt, pretty much. We need to say what corruption actually goes on in this country, what problems we have with forces, social services, etc. And the people, they're just not fit to work there anymore.
No, quite. Now, just quickly, if you can, Ellie, tell the audience, my audience, your story.
So I was a survivor of a rape gang. I can't say too much because I've just reopened my case. I did my 4th ABE last week. But I was subjected to a lot of, from the years 2013 till 2018. I went through a hell of a time, and you can find my story online. I've spoke quite a lot.
Yeah. And you were groomed into this, and I guess unusually you do come from a loving family, so it does prove, that the grooming system kind of coerced all sorts of girls into that evil web, including you, because you've got loving parents. You were a happy girl up there in Barrow, and you got sucked into all this.
Yeah, I think there's a massive stigma around grooming gangs that they only really target children that come from care homes, and it's not necessarily like that. I think what people need to be educated on is that grooming gangs operate in not just one way. That's the reason that they can operate for so many years. They will target anybody. They're not, they're evil, and they've got many different avenues. They won't, The only way that I can say it is when people think of grooming gangs, they think, a vulnerable girl has gone for free drink, free drugs, and it's not always like that. And I think people really do need to educate themselves on how many avenues it can go down.
Exactly. Now, as I just said, Rupert Lowe, his independent inquiry is underway. He's got this together. He's launched this out of sheer frustration because of just how much the government seems to be dragging its heels, seems to be kicking the can down the road. Now, under pressure, he didn't really want to do this, but last June it was, the 14th of June, last year, Keir Starmer finally announced, yes, there will be a public inquiry. And you remember, before that, Jess Phillips and him were saying, oh, no, we don't need a public inquiry. We'll have a couple of local ones, that'll be all. 250,000 victims all over the country. So there was a report by Baroness Casey, Louise Casey, that then revealed the extent of what had happened and the awful ordeal that girls like you were put through by these awful gangs. So Keir Starmer eventually relented and said, OK, we'll have a national inquiry, a public inquiry into this. He didn't like it, but he's going to do it. That was June, last June. It is now February 2026. When is this inquiry ever going to start, do you think?
I don't think it's going to. You have to look at, why doesn't he want one? I think they are well aware, the government, of what's going to come out. They're basically stabbing each other in the back at that point because they're more complicit than what people realise. I don't think they want it to come out. And I've heard on the grapevine that the inquiry through the government has fell through, it's collapsed. So, yeah.
Certainly looks like that. I mean, because you and your fellow victims, you were the victims panel, you quit because they started to sort of say, oh, look, we'll get this sort of former copper to be the chairperson of the inquiry. Oh, well, we'll get this social worker. These were the very types of people who let you down. Coppers, social workers, teachers, local politicians who just turned their back because to point the finger at the people who were torturing people like you, really, Ellie, they thought might make them look Islamophobic or racist. So these are the people who let you down, and the government was proposing that those very type of people should be in charge of the inquiry. That was the point where you thought, that I'm not going to be a part of this, right?
Yeah, I don't know why they expected us to be comfortable with sitting across from, like you say, former police officers, former social workers, and feeling that comfortability to be able to open up. We tried opening up years ago, and where did it get us apart from being criminalised, being accused of being racist, being called a liar? That was never going to work. And I think the reason that they had the survivors on the panel, which is just my opinion, I feel like when it all went skew-with, they could then turn around and say, well, we had the survivors on the panel, so it was, in my eyes, a tactic to pass the blame.
And what is your opinion, Ellie, of the safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips?
My opinion on Jess Phillips...
It's a family show.
Yeah, my comments on Jess Phillips probably aren't appropriate for TV, but I think that she's absolutely useless. I don't think that she's got a safeguard in her. Like I say, the victims and the survivors are practically doing Keir Starmer's and Jess Phillips' job in one, and it's embarrassing, really. I don't think that Jess Phillips is fit for her role. I think that she should have stepped down when she had the chance. I think it's an absolute mockery that she's still there, to be honest.